Hello flight simmers, welcome back to the channel, and this is part 4 of my cockpit build, and we're going to be looking at the port side. As stated previously in part 1 and 3, the consoles were all torn out and replaced with Martin Schmidt's replicas. So this cockpit came with a real throttle, however I replaced it with this real throttle grip and I used a Martin Schmidt replica throttle arm. The reason why I used Martin Schmidt's replica throttle arm is because it came with built-in linkage system, which made it a little bit easier to mount a Hall sensor in there and get all this working. Anybody who's installed one of these throttle arms knows that in order to get the guide rail lined up with the arc of the throttle can be quite tricky. This actually isn't lined up at all, really. And the reason why was I didn't want to alter the guide rail because it's already mounted in with all this plastic sidewall and stuff. So all I had to do, because the arc is not lined up properly, was I just adjusted the tilt of the throttle grip so that it moves freely. And it really doesn't matter how this is lined up. As long as you're reaching the detents, that's really all you have to worry about. So doing it that way made it quite easy to install. Okay, starting with the sidewall here, all the floodlights were replaced just like the starboard side with warm white LEDs. Gives it kind of an original bulb look. It makes the lighting more efficient. Canopy Spider is a mix between real Sim World and Martin Schmidt. Also has the real switch inside. Using the real chaff flare plunger, it's actually kind of a three-piece system. You have the actual switch on the inside, the mounting bracket, and then this plunger switch cap piece. Okay, moving on to rear, the Canopy jettison lever came with the sim. It's spring-loaded, and you have to push in these two plungers on the side to get it to release. I don't know if the real one is spring-loaded or it's removed, but this one, however, is spring-loaded, so you push in on both plungers and pull up on it. It takes quite a bit of force to pull it. This defog lever is non-functional, came with the sim, just moves fore and aft. The manual Canopy crank came with it as well, has no function, just kind of spins all the way around. And then, well, again, that's pretty much it for the side here. Okay, starting at the back here, the anti-G panel is real. It's got all the proper mechanical and plumbing. The only thing I'm missing is the hose that attaches to the G-suit. This test panel is real, all the proper switches, whatnot. Flight control panel. Again, it's all real. It's got the magnetic spring-loaded switches. This trim panel is an AIC, so it's using air cores for the needles. I had originally put pots for the trim wheels, but then discovered that you can't have pots in the trim wheels, like basically an analog working with the digital trim on the stick. So at one point these will have to be switched with, I guess, encoders to kind of make them work together. Honestly, I haven't even bothered with it yet. In the 3,000 plus hours, 20 plus years I've been flying BMS or Falcon, I have never used these trim wheels to adjust the trim, and I only use the stick. So the yaw trim has a pot in it, and that works, so that's great. Exterior light is all the proper switches and whatnot that works. The aux-com is an AIC again, so it uses the digital display here for the TACAN or IFF, depending on which version you're using. I do have the real encoder switches to use for those. Just haven't really got to that yet, but this makes it pretty simple. It's always synced up because it's digital, so chances are I'm probably just going to continue to use the aux-com. Mod I'm going to be doing to this panel as it's in the mail, but I got the proper switch for this, as it should be pulled up to go to off or go to emergency mode, so I'll be swapping that switch out. Okay, moving on to the fuel panel. Everything's real with this. It's got the proper switches. It's got a locking switch for the air fuel door, switch guard. I do believe this switch should be a locking switch at all with this series switch guard, so I'll probably be swapping that at some point. The EPU is a real panel as well, with all the proper lights and what's not. Double switch guard here. Electric panel is real as well, the proper locking switch. The AVTR panel is real. I actually use this to record both the Falcon 4 ACMI recorder and as well as the external software I use that records my left MFD monitor that I use in my videos. So turning the switch on just turns both on. This ECM panel is not quite finished. Basically, I just have to do the backlighting. This is a do-it-yourself kind of made panel where I used tornado indicators. I can't remember the name of the switch manufacturer, but I just found them pretty much the easiest to modify. So if I turn this on here and hit test light here, you'll see how it lights up. But basically this turns my ECM off and on. Audio 2 panel is real. Audio 1 panel is real. UHF panel is an AIC. It's kind of cool because the software has a lot of built-in added features that you don't see in BMS currently. For instance, if I switch from preset to manual, the display up here turns off. You can also check what your presets are. You can do a display test. So everything's kind of works a little bit more realistic than what we currently have in BMS. All this stuff is just aesthetics and cosmetics. Just there's no real function. Just kind of makes it look like the real panel. The MPO is real. The jet start, of course, is real. It's got the magnetic spring-loaded switches as well. Finally got the proper light plate that has the actual primary and secondary functions. So it's the more modern JFS panel. Okay, looking at the right aux panel. The RF panel here is a replica that's made by Cage. Because the Greeks used the drogue chute, they moved the RF switch down here. This threat warning prime is, again, it's the Greek version. That's all. That's a replica. I still need to do the backlighting on this. These are using the tornado light indicator switches as well. The alt gear handle is a simulator one. Basically just has a push button here to reset, and you have to pull it up, and so you can see it only moves about ½ inch, 3/4 of an inch. I'm not sure how the real one operates, but that's how much the simulator one is. Feels like it's got about maybe 5-pound spring pressure on it. The CMDS is a real panel. This is hooked up through Beta Innovations to get the displays to work. The reason why the chaff and flare counter are flashing is there's a bit of a power leak or something. I've got a few ideas on what it is, but just haven't got around to checking it. They only seem to flash when I have more than one controller hooked in to what I'm using to power up those LEDs. So if I use this just alone, they don't blink like that. So it's suspected to be a power issue that I can look at a later time. But either way though, it makes it function, and it's all the real switches. The program switch here is when I discovered that it actually has try to put my hand in the way where you can see it. To move it to bit, it's spring loaded anyways. And then another thing I noticed is to go to bypass, you actually have to push it in to turn it, so it locks it out when you're going to bypass. So pushing in to go to bypass or to release it. So that was kind of something I thought was kind of neat. The air brake indicator is real. Kind of don't have things powered up to make it kind of work right now, but that works anyways based off the air brake switch off the throttle. This arming gear lever, another one of Martin Schmidt's replicas, fantastic. Got the built-in solenoid and whatnot, so if you press the white button, it allows it to go up and whatnot. This gear panel was one of the last panels I received. I must have looked for a panel, that panel for a better part than over a year. So got that through a source, and it's in fantastic shape, pretty much almost new as far as I'm concerned. So all of the panels in the cockpit As you saw from part 3, they just run to a cable to the front underneath the rudder floorboard. And basically what I designed and built was what I call my avionics box. So rather than having circuit boards spread out throughout the cockpit, and due to the fact that this is a real simulator that I can't get access to the sides, I wanted to make it easy. So I put everything inside of one rack mountable basically a rack mountable box, put all my components in there, put all my DB connectors, and I think if I recall it's got over 1,500 feet of wire to get that all wired up. That was a bit of a task. Thanks to COVID, I guess, I had to self-isolate for a 2-week period, and I pretty much wired for almost 8 hours a day each day. And got her all done within 2 weeks anyway, so that was kind of I guess a bonus about this whole nonsense with COVID. So gave me a lot of downtime to get all that wired up. But part of the reason why I did that as well is if I ever do any upgrades, change any of the electronics, switch everything to Pokies or whatnot, because I'm using Pokies, AIC, and Beta Innovations to basically run this cockpit. But if I ever decide to change anything, basically all I have to do is work out of the avionics box, because all the panels would be wired all the same. They're just channeled into this one box. So in my mind, it seemed like an easy way to be able to do any future upgrades or whatnot, as well as working on the cockpit itself. So I only have to worry about working through the front end of it and not trying to crawl under these consoles again. So there you have it. It's a quick little video on the port side. Stay tuned for part 5, and we're going to look at the main instrument panel. Once again, if you like these videos, you want to keep them coming, please like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel. We'll catch y'all next time.